As the American convoy moves out to sea, Soviet Foreign Minister Yuri Rubanov holds a dramatic televised press conference in the Kremlin.
Советский Союз был вынужден принять следующие меры по обеспечению мира и безопасности в Европе. В данный момент наш флот в Северной Атлантике подготавливает зону запрета, показанную вот на этой карте. За пределами этой зоны мы будем действовать в интересах нашей национальной безопасности. Любая попытка игнорировать эту меру будет расценена как враждебный акт, и наши вооруженные силы примут соответствующие контрмеры. Я хочу добавить, что советское руководство твердо занимает следующую позицию. Все конфликты в Центральной Европе должны решаться за столом переговоров, а не на поле брани.
The American convoy, joined by an assortment of British anti-submarine warships, closes in on the Soviet exclusion zone. Last-ditch diplomatic efforts between the White House and the Kremlin fail to reach a compromise. Out in the Atlantic, every hour brings the two sides closer to a direct military confrontation.
We were left with only two alternatives at this point. Turning back the convoy would have meant abandoning the principles of the NATO alliance and leaving Europe to the mercy of the likes of Soshkin. And yet, if we continued on our present course, we ran the risk of starting a goddamn war. So given the circumstances as they appeared at that time, I still believe that the President made the correct decision.
We're dealing with Hitler revisited, a totalitarianism and a brutality that is naked and unprecedented in modern times. And that must not stand. We cannot talk about compromise when you have that kind of behavior going on this very minute.
At dawn, the Soviet Northern Fleet moves its forces into position. Beneath the ocean, 68 Soviet submarines receive orders from Moscow to attack the convoy.
Акустик докладом установку. Всплываем. Базово всплывать на оси. Бортовые не вперед.
Within hours, nearly a quarter of the convoy is lost to Soviet rocket, torpedo, and land-based air attacks. Rescue teams struggle to save the survivors. American and British warships counterattack with strikes against Soviet land-based backfire bombers, submarines, and the Soviet Northern Fleet. Aboard the 3 American aircraft carriers in the area, 144 fighter jets take to the air. Soviet gunners, seamen, and fighter pilots struggle to defend themselves. But they are quickly overwhelmed. As dusk falls, NATO has won the battle and the sea lanes remain open. But the Third World War has begun.
We are standing in front of the United Nations where a huge crowd of peace demonstrators has gathered. They are burning American flags and even an effigy of President Bush. As the Security Council meets inside an emergency session, the situation out here is absolute pandemonium.
Colleagues, we meet at the hinge of history. If he should win this struggle, then there will be no peace, only the prospect of more conflict and a far wider war. As I said earlier today, we must remember the lesson of the 1930s, and aggression must not be rewarded. And I give the floor to the distinguished Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics.
Господин председатель, господа члены Совета Безопасности, продолжающаяся мобилизация войск НАТО в Западной Германии является умышленной провокацией и представляет собой прямую угрозу миру и безопасности в Европе. Советский Союз не может оставаться в стороне и игнорировать эту угрозу, которая является опасной как для нас, так и для наших союзников по Варшавскому договору. В свете происшедшего за последние сутки становится очевидно, что мы не стремимся развязать еще одну мировую войну. Но если нам ее навяжут, то уклоняться от нее мы не собираемся. Должен напомнить уважаемому государственному секретарю Соединенных Штатов, что все, кто в прошлом на нас нападал, очень плохо кончили.
Fellow members of the Council, we are at a crossroads. We continue to seek a diplomatic solution. You can choose peace by respecting the will of the international community. But if you fail to do so, you will risk all. The choice is yours. This meeting is adjourned.
The following days see a vast mobilization of Soviet forces. Special airborne units and military supplies are flown round the clock to East Germany, adding to the 400,000 Soviet troops already stationed there. Tanks and other heavy equipment are moved in by train from Poland. In the West, shiploads of military supplies from the United States begin to arrive at ports all along the North Sea coast of Western Europe. Within a few weeks, Allied forces will be at full strength, ready, if called upon, to liberate West Berlin. In West Germany, the government is preparing for the worst. The few existing shelters that are designed to save people from a nuclear attack undergo inspection.
Ja, die momentane Lage ist so, dass wir den Bunker fast einsatzbereit haben, dass der Diesel vorgewärmt wird, die Lüftungsanlage, man hört das schon, sie läuft schon. Ja, die Kollegen gucken jetzt, dass die Zählwerke am Eingang richtig funktionieren, dass die richtig laufen, wo wir dann sehen können, wie viele Leute wir schon aufgenommen haben dann. Ne? Und wir können ungefähr 1500 Leute hier aufnehmen. Wir haben 500 Betten, die wir hier haben, 1000 Plätze zum Sitzen und im 8-stündigen Wechsel wird hier geschlafen und gesessen dann. Ne? Und wenn das Zählwerk die entsprechende Menge anzeigt, ca. 1500, dann wird automatisch die Tür am Zählwerk geschlossen und auch der Schleusenstand schließt dann die Schleuse, sodass wir dann hier hermetisch abgeriegelt sind, dann, dass hier auch kein Mensch mehr reinkommt.
In East Germany, too, the government is preparing its citizens for war.
Seit Jahren verteidigt das Kollektiv mit Erfolg die höchste Stufe der Einsatzbereitschaft. Eben deshalb werden wir...
Zivilverteidigung, das war doch bloß Propaganda. Ich habe doch selbst bei der ZV mitgemacht. Bunker gab es noch für die Bonzen, schon weil das Baumaterial knapp war. Na, und dann hatten wir ständig irgendwelche Übungen, sind dann mit Geigerzählern durch die Gegend gerannt und haben Wasserentseuchen geübt, ja und so weiter. Also ich fand das damals ganz schön makaber, irgendwie.
I was asked to go to Moscow to see if we could help sort things out before the you-know-what hit the fan. Basically, we were willing to help the Soviets slowly withdraw from Eastern Europe in an orderly fashion. We were also ready to agree to a very lengthy timetable for the eventual reunification of Germany. I mean, my God, the party was basically over for them in Eastern Europe. All we were doing was trying to make this process as easy as possible for all concerned. So, with this proposal in hand, I was ushered right into the heart of the beast. I went up some sort of back entrance and right into the general's private headquarters, where I finally met face-to-face with the man himself.
Я лично видел все это представление. Джейкобс напоминал мне скорее шустрого американского продавца, а не дипломата. Он прекрасно понимал, что его товар нас совсем не интересует. На такое открыто империалистическое, на такое высокомерное предложение со стороны американцев генерал Сошкин мог ответить только одним словом: нет.
That's about all I remember him saying during the whole meeting. Нет. Нет. Just like in the movies. It was hopeless.
With the crisis in Europe deepening, the West German parliament earlier today officially declared a state of emergency. Military command has been transferred to Chancellor Helmut Kohl. According to emergency laws set up under the West German Federal Constitution, far-reaching authority will be given to the police and the military for the maintenance of public order and security. In the coming days, private vehicles will be restricted from main roads and autobahns. All civilian air traffic, both in and out of West Germany, has been suspended as of 6 o'clock this evening.
Now at last the government woke up. In Western Berlin, after 6 weeks of the blockade, there was really nothing more to eat, with the state food reserve running down and water and electricity rationed. And in Western Germany, we thought people were sitting high and dry, but that seemed to be over now too.
At airports across Europe, thousands of passengers desperate to flee the crisis find themselves stranded.
Frau Präsidentin, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren! Ich habe Verständnis für Angst, die manchen bei uns erfasst. Und dennoch gilt, Frieden um jeden Preis kann und darf es nicht geben.
Outside on the streets, the demonstrators have a different view.
In all our war plans, we'd always been a little anxious, to say the least, at the prospect of a battle between two German armies, a war brother against brother. But you must remember that to most of our young men, East Germany was as foreign as Poland or Russia. However, we suffered quite a large number of young men refusing their call to service.
Kompanie, wo die Gebäude antreten! Kompanie, in Linie, antreten!
Zweiter Bade meldet sich wie befohlen. Zweiter Heck meldet sich wie befohlen.
Zweiter Schommers meldet sich wie befohlen.
NATO forces are fully mobilized. Employing the strategy of forward defense, They concentrate their positions right up to the inter-German border. Here in Mödlareuth, a small village straddling the Iron Curtain, the situation is the same as in many places in the area. The daily military maneuvers take a heavy toll among civilians on both sides, who are under strict government orders to stay put. Stay put. As they watch thousands of battle-ready Allied troops move up to the front, the Kremlin knows that time is running out.
Here in Lower Saxony, near the border with East Germany, we're witnessing an impressive buildup of British, French, and American ground forces. If Washington gives the okay to begin a military advance to free West Berlin, these troops are likely to be the first into battle. Everyone here is hoping and praying for some sort of diplomatic solution to end this crisis, but with the blockade of West Berlin entering its 5th week and Soschkin remaining defiant, some form of military action is becoming increasingly likely. I'm John Itzke reporting from West Germany.
Es muss den 1. März gewesen sein, da habe ich den Genossen Staatsratsvorsitzenden an die Front begleitet. Wollte den Piloten unserer Luftstreitkräfte Mut zusprechen.
Ihr versteht es richtig, Genossen. Für uns kommt es darauf an, den Frieden zu sichern und den Krieg zu bekämpfen, jederzeit bereit und fähig zu sein, jedem Aggressor eine vernichtende Abfuhr zu erteilen.
Er konnte die Männer ungeheuer begeistern. Das war aber dann auch der letzte schöne Tag, an den ich mich erinnern kann.
Gestatten Sie, dass ich im Namen aller Armee an
East Germany, too, is fully mobilized. The blockade of West Berlin has failed to divide the Western Allies, whose armed forces now appear ready to strike. Honecker, meanwhile, nervously awaits orders from Moscow.
Я помню, мы сидели с генералом Сошкиным в его кабинете наедине. Он посмотрел на меня и сказал: гроза поднимается. Потом он подошел к окну и долго стоял и смотрел на улицу. Я понимал, что он имеет в виду. Операция «Гром» вступала в заключительную стадию. С этого момента генерал Сошкин переехал в наш штаб за городом. И практически я его больше не видел до самого конца.
The attack begins where it is least expected. A daylight naval assault along the Baltic coast of West Germany, backed up by heavy Soviet bombing. Within hours, 12,000 men of the Soviet Baltic Fleet and the East German Navy stormed the beaches. Heavy equipment is moved ashore. Meeting little resistance, they gradually make their way inland. NATO throws much of its available forces north to hold the line. West German, British and Dutch units move in and are the first to engage the enemy advance. Backing them up is the newly arrived 40,000-man 3rd U.S. Corps, moving up rapidly from ports along the North Sea.
What are we going to find on the other side of that hill? I don't know, but we're prepared for what's over on the other side of that hill. Do you think they've got more than we've got there? It's hard to say. You never know what you need the crest of it, and then you scope it out whether you need more reinforcements or not. We do. We got them behind us. This ain't like Vietnam. It's a hell of a lot bigger than Vietnam.
The news from the front is grim.
Military authorities indicate that the massive Soviet and East German military advance is meeting fierce resistance from NATO forces. Casualties are reported to be heavy on both sides. All talks have now broken down, and there are mounting fears that an escalation towards a nuclear conflict may be inevitable.
Nearly 1,500 Warsaw Pact troops are estimated to have lost their lives in the first few hours of the war. Casualties among the NATO forces have also mounted to well over 1,000 dead.
We lost 3/4 of our men out here today. Mike 1-2. See if you can get attack helicopters and artillery support in that area, over.
The area that I'm getting worried about is up on the north here. If they flank us to the north and across the Corps boundary and make it, they've outflanked this whole area.
The naval assault along the Baltic coast turns out to be a diversion to the main enemy thrust. That begins 18 hours later, striking directly through the heart of central Germany.
Die große Bodenoffensive begann am Morgengrauen des 13. März. Ich führte ein Panzerregiment der 3. NVA-Armee. Gemeinsam mit der 1. sowjetischen Gardepanzerarmee sind wir als Erste bei Fulda über die Grenze in die BRD vorgestoßen.
6 divisions with over 1,600 tanks and 100,000 soldiers lead the advance.
Unser Auftrag war es, mit einem blitzartigen Stoß nach Westen bis zum Rhein zu kommen. Als Operationsplan sollten die NATO-Kräfte in 2 Teile gespalten und unterwegs alle größeren Luftwaffenstützpunkte vernichtet werden. Danach, so die Zielstellung, sollte unsere politische Führung Friedensverhandlungen anbieten. Nach sowjetischen Schätzungen, nachdem unsere Planung aufgestellt war, war die Operation in etwa 10 Tagen abzuschließen.
The attack is supported by massive Soviet airstrikes. Hundreds of fighter jets and bombers take part in an all-out effort to destroy NATO's air force on the ground. Despite years of preparation, the suddenness and magnitude of the Soviet attack overwhelms NATO defenses. A large part of NATO's air force is damaged or destroyed. Runways are rendered inoperable. % of the attacking air force is shot down. In just 36 hours of war, Both sides have expended a major part of their available arsenals. A total of nearly 30,000 military casualties are reported. MASH units are unable to care for all the wounded. Those who are still able to be moved are transported away from the front lines. Residential areas in the vicinity of NATO military installations are also hit hard.
These people, they are safe in their government bunker. I think they should come around and have a look here what's going on.
Official estimates put the initial number of civilian casualties at over 3,500. West German air defenses do their best to warn of the air raids. But the sirens are of little help, as people soon discover there is only enough shelter space for 3% of the population.
Military facilities around Hamburg are under attack tonight. Air defense batteries have been set up all over the city, and the people here are desperately seeking any shelter they can find.
The situation near the front line deteriorates into chaos, as frightened civilians and military forces become entangled in the retreat. In the face of the oncoming Soviet advance, orders are given to blow most of the river crossing.
We're going to stop it. We have to stop it. This is a critical area. If they seize this terrain right here, and they seize the whole line. The whole line would collapse if they took this particular terrain here.
As the Soviets continue their advance, any hope of liberating West Berlin begins to fade.
Since early in March, I was assigned to a new auxiliary hospital. People were getting more and more hysterical each day. Soon the Russians will arrive, and then the atom bombs will come. That was a general feeling. Giving out tranquilizers was about all I could do.
Throughout West Germany comes the beginnings of social breakdown. 20 million automobiles jam the roads as people violate the emergency laws in an attempt to flee.
We have unconfirmed reports that Soviet and East German ground forces have advanced to within just 10 miles of the city. In a public statement released earlier today, the British commander of the Northern Army Group, General Sir George Winthrop, vowed to repel the attack at any cost. When asked if that meant he was prepared to use nuclear weapons, he offered no comment.
In the forward areas, town after town is reduced to rubble.
I was preparing myself for the worst, I must say. Now, every scenario we had run of this kind of situation always came out the same way. At a certain point, we would be forced to use nuclear weapons or surrender our country to the enemy. This was the unavoidable strategy for our defense. And now I came to the conclusion that we would soon have no other alternative. Our plans for starting such an attack called for approximately 35 nuclear devices in the first salvo. Half of this explosive power was targeted on German soil, I might add. However, our conventional forces were granted another 24 hours before these plans were to become operational.
24 hours to turn the tide of the war. Striking north through the mountains of Czechoslovakia, Allied jets, including several American stealth fighters, attack and destroy the Soviet command and control headquarters at Legnica in southern Poland.
Bombs gone.
Similar targets in East Germany are also taken out, critically weakening the Soviets' highly centralized command structure. With supplies and materiel on both sides reaching critical levels, a final decisive air battle develops, one that will determine the outcome of the war. It is a fight to the death.
We've got a short, tally 1, box 1. Turn back to hit canoe. Okay, come on, I'm going to put him on the side of my scope to avoid the box 1 going left. Okay, Eaton, first on the next back outside. Push down. Get back on the heavy now, run close and...
Suffering extraordinary losses, the Soviets lose vital control of the airspace over Eastern Europe.
Am schlimmsten war, dass wir durch den Angriff auf Legnica unsere Luftunterstützung und unsere Kommunikationseinrichtungen verloren hatten. Außerdem waren unsere Nachschublinien unterbrochen durch die Aufständischen in Polen.
The advance quickly grinds to a halt.
Außerdem, der historischen Wahrheit zuliebe, muss ich Ihnen sagen, dass ein großer Teil unseres Geräts überhaupt nicht gefechtsklar war. Nicht so sehr bei uns, aber bei den Sowjets waren zum Beispiel von den Panzern etwa nur 60% einsatzbereit. Ich war hier vorne mit dabei und ich kann Ihnen sagen, wir blieben reihenweise liegen. Wie lahme Enten, es war vorbei.
Having penetrated just 50 miles into West Germany, the Soviet and East German forces are pushed back. With supplies cut off and command and control in chaos, the inherent technological weakness of the Warsaw Pact is now fully exposed. With total air superiority, NATO bombers, ground forces and helicopter gunships operate with impunity against the highly vulnerable Soviet tanks. The East German army in particular suffers heavy losses, and there are reports of mass desertions.
In der DDR brach die Versorgung völlig zusammen. Ja, es gab nichts mehr. Naja, irgendwie kannte man das ja. Die Produktion, die wurde von einem Tag auf den anderen völlig umgestellt und wir haben dann nur noch für die Armee gearbeitet. Und die ganze Zeit, da hatten wir nur einen Gedanken. Ne? Weg aus der Stadt, bloß raus hier. Denn wenn das richtig losgeht, dann hat man da überhaupt keine Chance.
All along the entire front, Soviet army units are in full retreat. The East Germans are now left to fend for themselves.
Ich habe mich mit meiner Frau aufs Land durchgeschlagen, zu Verwandten in der Nähe von Magdeburg. Ja, auf der LPG gab es wenigstens noch was zu essen. Und die meiste Zeit haben wir im Keller gesessen, Und dann, als wir die ersten amerikanischen Panzer gehört haben, also die Kanonenschüsse, da habe ich sie angeguckt und sie hat mich angeguckt und wir haben halt gedacht, jetzt haben wir es hinter uns. Ja, dann kam es richtig dicke. Ganz schlimm.
On March 25, 1990, the main NATO advance crosses the river Elbe and moves deeper into East Germany in a headlong rush towards Berlin.
East Germany was disintegrating before our very eyes. You had armed gunmen running around who seemed to be launching a violent overthrow of whatever was left of the central government. Now, in the midst of all this, we completed the Berlin operation, while the Soviets were retreating back to the Polish border. It was absolute chaos.
In the areas surrounding the divided city, NATO units are pinned down in bitter house-to-house fighting. In less than 24 hours since crossing the Elbe, NATO forces enter the outskirts of Berlin.
As I said earlier, we do not have confirmation of all of these reports. It's a very fast-moving situation, and things are still in a certain degree of flux, but it would appear that events are, at least for now, moving in a positive direction, and we continue to hope that this will end in a clear and positive result.
West Berlin is liberated. With celebrations going on into the night, the people of West Berlin have much to rejoice, including the hope that the reunification of Germany is finally at hand.
Ja, die letzten Tage waren schlimm. Honecker, ich weiß nicht warum, der wollte die Tatsachen einfach nicht sehen. Es war vorbei, aber er nahm es nicht zur Kenntnis. Die Sowjets hatten uns den ganzen Schlamassel eingebrockt, die waren für uns erledigt.
Even in the heart of the Soviet Union, opposition to Sochkin's regime has now taken to the streets. From East Germany to Central Asia, the Soviet Empire is imploding in violence and insurrection. As the situation spirals out of control, Sochkin becomes increasingly desperate.
There was a consensus of opinion among most of our allies to get the hell out of there as soon as possible. After all, with the liberation of West Berlin, our military objectives had been achieved. Only the West Germans were calling upon us to push all the way to the Polish border to complete the reunification of Germany, to finish the job as they saw it. Only the President felt that it was very important to signal to the Soviets that we had no intention of taking any further offensive action against them.